Okay. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, and welcome to our educational webinar, proudly hosted by the International Trade Council. My name is Anne, and I am delighted to be your host for today's session. Before we dive into the heart of today's session, let's quickly ensure our technical setup is perfect. Could you kindly type yes in the chat box if my voice is clear and the presentation is visible to everyone? Let's take a brief moment for everyone to respond for it. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for confirming everything is in order. So today's session promises to be both enlightening and engaging, focusing on GPT models for business excellence. This webinar will explore how GPT models are reshaping business strategies and enhancing operational efficiency. We're honored to have Mr. Martin Dens, managing partner at SDTC Solution, as our distinguished speaker. Martin brings a wealth of experience and insights to the table, and we're eager to learn from him. Without further delay, I'll hand over the virtual stage to you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Anne. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Uh, as Anne said, we'll touch base on how GPT models, a form of artificial intelligence technology, is shaping the business world. And I'll try to explain in simple terms what it is, how it's used nowadays, and what to expect in the nearest future. I'm the managing partner for SDT Solutions, the UK consultancy dealing with transformation, and also for the Zik Solutions, the the Emirates consultancy, also helping the customers with digital transformation projects. So the objective for today is to explain the technology in what I call business speak, for the top level executives in simple terms, in business terms, what these these aspects of artificial intelligence are. I will highlight some transformative influences of this type of artificial intelligence technology. And at the end, we'll have some time to answer your questions. I think I'll try to finish in about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time to answer questions. If some questions are not answered during the call today, you can always reach out to me later, and I'll be happy to answer them afterwards. And obviously, as any learning, this should be fun and pretty light going. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. Is a type of artificial intelligence technology, basically a type of machine learning program, which is normally trained on a huge amount of data, and it's used to generate text, do translation, write all sort of creative content, or engage in conversation in an informative and human-like manner. You can think of them as some form of superpowered autocomplete, like T9 on steroids, if you like. But unlike your phone autocomplete, which can only finish the word which you're typing, you can think of GPT as a model which uses all the literature in the world to predict the next word, the most likely word to follow after the previous word, and it can do it in a very efficient way, for different applications. So it is a very powerful model, a very powerful program, which basically does exactly that, predicts the next word coming after the previous word. As simple as that. I'm sorry, if someone's having issues with the audio, then probably something with your setup, because I understand that most people do hear me, but really sorry about that. Going forward, a bit of history here. The history of GPT, and again, we'll be talking about ChatGPT as an example. The system, the GPT system, originating from OpenAI company. The first model, GPT-1, was released in 2018. It was the first iteration, the baby steps, only trained on 117 million parameters. It is really, a tiny amount of text. You can think of it as about 40 gigabyte of text data. So your smartphone is probably hosting more text or more capacity nowadays than was used to train GPT-1. Uh, and it was a very simple, more like experimental solution to create text, answer simple questions, and do some basic translation. A year later, GPT grew into the next version. OpenAI issued the second version of ChatGPT, which was trained on approximately 1.5 billion parameters, so an order of magnitude change from the previous version, and it enabled much more complex and colorful text generation. So it could generate text in a more advanced way, mimic certain styles, produce the text following, let's say, British or American grammar conventions, etc. But it also raised concerns about potential misuse of the technology, because obviously the model is not smart. It's not thinking. It just predicts the words which it thinks go together well based on the amount of training information provided. So it could easily generate very naturally and conveniently looking fake news or fake statements or potential even harmful content. So OpenAI limited the public access to the model at the moment because they realized that it could be potentially very harmful because there were no any kind of safety mechanisms embedded in the program. A year later, ChatGPT 3 was the model which, again, leapfrogged ahead and used like 2 orders of magnitude or 1,000 times more data for training compared to the initial version. It was very capable in terms of writing different creative content, creating any sort of copywriting, generating ideas. It looked or behaved pretty much like a human interaction. It could answer sophisticated questions in a very informative way. And after a bit of fine tuning, what's interesting that the fine tuning actually took them longer than issuing the first really capable model of GPT-3. GPT 3.5 was issued and made available for public in 2022. It was focused on improving factual accuracy or reducing the inherent bias of the model. And as I said, it was the first model made available to general public. And last year, GPT-4, another huge leap ahead, over 100 trillion parameters or texts used for training that model. And that was the first model which was made available for a small fee. And it was the first model which was embedded in some additional products like Microsoft Copilot. Those of you who use Windows probably are familiar with this technology from Microsoft. It's embedded in Bing search and so on and so forth. So it was the first commercially successful implementation of a GPT model. Now, taking the business look at the technology, what it does for the business. Obviously, the most on the surface application is marketing and advertising, creating all sort of different content, virtual assistant. Again, I mentioned Microsoft Copilot, and different forms of predictive analysis. Uh, Another application which you probably have experienced yourself already is customer service and support. All sort of chatbots, automated ticket resolution. The chatbot which appears to be quite sentient in terms of understanding what you type in, not a pre-programmed or scripted one, but actually responding to queries. Uh, and it also could be used in the backend for analyzing the trends, analyzing the feedback. It helps businesses nowadays already with understanding how specific feedback should be actioned upon, or perhaps could be ignored, etc. Sales and business development, quite obvious, lead generation, qualification of the leads, also of generating customized sales proposals, drafting the contracts, and competitive intelligence. I can give you an example that with SDTC solutions, the moment I need to create a new contract, I draft it using ChatGPT, and I tweak it for the specific geo. So, for example, I can take my standard contract and prompt the model in a way to create specific contract for a specific jurisdiction, for example, for the United Arab Emirates, the United States, or here in the UK or European Union, etc. Obviously, any type of content and creative development, writing, script writing, uh, creating product descriptions, naming, that's a very powerful element to that. The model can brainstorm on all sort of different brands and names and generate non-existing but pleasantly sounding names, etc. It can also do some sort of background analysis to see if the proposed combination for the product name or the brand was used in the past, if there are potential infringement, etc. Product development and design, you may have heard of that. Nowadays it's no longer cool to code in Python or in any other programming language for that matter. It's cool to be able to prompt a model to generate the code for you. So that probably gives you an idea to the extent these GPT models are used nowadays in coding, in product development. And it's easy to explain because if you remember what I said about predictive models, about GPT, is that it predicts the most logical or the most probable next word to follow the previous word. And it goes very well with the programming languages. But it also helps with other stuff around and other tasks around product development. It can help you create product documentation, and it's used nowadays by many companies to create product documentation based on the code or based on specific scenarios of the using of specific products. Human resources and talent management, that's quite natural. You may have heard the word um, applicant tracking system. If you apply for a job nowadays, your CV won't be seen by a human before it's screened by a specific product called applicant tracking system, which matches the application against the actual job description and rates the CVs, the applicants, by relevance. It's all done using the same technology, GPT. All sort of different forms of employee onboarding and training material, sometimes customized training materials based on the employee background, and performance feedback and evaluation it's a very powerful use. If you think what the managers had to do in the past, you have a team of 10 direct reports, you collect 360 feedback for all of them, and you get 360s on each person. That means that you have 30 different emails which you need to analyze, put together, prioritize, and then create the performance review for 10 people. In the past, I don't know, 20 years ago, that would took me a couple of days uh, to create the performance review for the team of 10. Now it takes me only about an hour if I use the GPT model and prompt it, and I feed the feedback into the model, and I prompt it to create performance evaluation reviews. Then I just add the finishing touch of that. So huge performance improvement here. And risk management and compliance, analyzing the legislation and regulatory documents, monitoring of compliance, detecting potential fraud, and detecting the patterns and scenarios which could lead to fraud, all sort of risk mitigation or predictive risk modeling. All sort of these tasks are now heavily automated already with GPT. So this is what is going on right now. So if you think of adopting this for any of these tasks, you're probably late already because it has been done. And another interesting bit of statistics which I discovered looking at what's going on right now, McKinsey published in August 2023 the result of mostly US-based research as of April last year. So the results are about a year old by now, that approximately 1/3 of all businesses worldwide already use any form of generative AI for their tasks, at least in one task. But it's also interesting that approximately 8%, 79%, uh, 4 out of 5 managers had experience using generative AI in their personal use, but only 22%, one fifth, use them professionally. And again, unsurprisingly, IT, media, telecoms were the leading industries which used or take advantage of generative AI, while the stragglers included energy and pharma, which I'm a bit surprised, honestly. But moving forwards, again, I promised you, the top level, the C-suite perspective on artificial intelligence and the GPT form of AI in particular. So here is a familiar SWOT analysis for you on the existing GPT models and GPT tools. Uh, on the strengths, obviously, it's efficiency, scalability, and versatility. It's a very capable tool, multi-talented, that boosts productivity, as I illustrated for you. Sometimes like an order of magnitude improvement. Some of the weaknesses include all sort of different privacy or IP protection concerns and dependency on the quality data. The opportunities obviously lie in the area of further automation, improve decision making, and improved customer engagement. And we'll touch base on those on the next slide when we speak about what comes next from our point of view. And the threats, unsurprisingly, and many of you may have heard of the ethical concerns. That includes, the bias. Again, the model is only as smart as the training data used for training the actual model. All sort of concerns of, job displacement, or the robots taking our jobs, and it is a growing concern and something which the executives need to address going forward, as they develop the strategy of AI adoption and using the powerful GPT tool specifically. And last but not least, misinformation spread. Now, all sort of information, text, facts, which look very convincing, when produced by a GPT model, they need double checking, triple checking for factual correctness, because the model simply invents the things, and you may have heard the term hallucination or hallucinated model. That's a specific term used for those GPT models when they make up facts. And by saying that, I mean, they can be really convincing if you ask the model to create, to produce some text and produce the sources. You need to double check the sources, because the model might not only create or make up the facts, but also could make up very convincing source references, unless you're very careful with how you prompt the model. And by the way, prompting is the new buzzword. Prompt engineering is the skill of creating the prompts, asking the model to deliver what you want it to deliver. Thank you for the questions. I'll touch base and I'll answer the questions at the end when we'll have time for that. What's next for the GPT models? What comes next for the applications in the future? And this is something, if you're really keen to try to implement, this is where, from our point of view, the future competitive advantage sits for application of this technology. Again, speaking of sales and marketing, again, it's hyper-personalized, truly global marketing capabilities. It means that the model could create anything from dynamic websites, which only you will see and only you will interact with. You remember, like in those science fiction films, which you may have seen, like the Blade Runner, etc., when the ads in the on the billboards, they address people passing by directly by their name and create quite personalized experience for them. Well, we're not there yet with with the public billboards, but with the websites or smartphone apps for that matter, it is almost there. So you could use generative AI technology to create these super personalized, laser focused marketing and sales pitches for your customers. Again, customer experience, it could be truly immersive. It means that the interactions GPT models could facilitate and maintain for quite prolonged period of time would be very empathetic. It will be very closely, relating to the customer needs, wishes, values. And again, not because you collect some additional information or collect tons of personal data from the customers, but simply because the model could, in some obviously computer meaning, but it could sense the mood of the person interacting with it, respond accordingly to their mood, to their wishes, to literally to simple wins, sense if the customer is disappointed, or if the customer is curious, or if the customer is angry, and provide super personalized experience and help you deal with the customer at different stages of this customer experience interaction. Going a bit towards the back end of the enterprise, all sorts and all forms of automation and operations. In some sense, GPT models are the Swiss Army knives of operations, because they can operate not only texts, which is quite obvious when you interact with ChatGPT or with Google Gemini, but they can also collect, process, analyze, learn on all sort of different data which they receive. The sensor readings, or all sort of different numeric data which they receive from your enterprise planning system, or from manufacturing execution system. So uh, GPT models are super powerful in creating all sort of predictive scenarios, so they could automate your preventative maintenance, keeping your downtime to the absolute minimum, which was unthinkable just a few years ago. So the elements like that, the things like that, are real huge potential for the backend. When it comes to content creation and design, again, it unlocks human productivity. Take me, for example. I cannot draw. I'm not really talented in creating images, but if I need a visual representation of my idea, what I do right now, I just prompt the GPT model to create the image for me, and that opens huge potential for all sort of different content creation. Again, not necessarily and only for the business, but also all forms of entertainment and content creation, including the content creation on the fly for all sort of different metaverse and virtual and augmented reality applications. So again, huge potential there, and we're just testing the waters with this domain. And last but not least, enhanced decision making and risk management. Again, because the model is very powerful in spotting the trends, analyzing the patterns, and predicting their future development. Again, with all the caveat that, well, properly prompted, it would create relatable and truthful results. It could be used to spot the trends or spot potential correlation between different elements of your business and help you with the decision making. Again, as far as you do not trust wholeheartedly the model, and you use your human critical assessment of what the model created for you, this is a super powerful tool to analyze all sort of background data and pull it into the into the decision making model, and using it for further improving and advancing your business. This is what we at ZTC Solutions recommend as three main steps if the businesses start thinking or of bringing any form of artificial intelligence technology, and GPT specifically, into the business process. First foremost, you start with it and integrating it strategically. You don't do this as an add-on. You don't simply bolt on the technology of ChatGPT or another public or private your own GPT model, because again, I use GPT and I mostly refer to ChatGPT from OpenAI, but there are different models, including the local models, which are not based on public cloud on huge amounts of data, which you can fine tune and train on your own data if you're concerned about security and privacy. And I'll speak about that in a minute. But you start strategically and you think of GPT as a super powerful tool, but it's not a magic wand. You need to identify clear business outcomes, business needs, which you want to address with your application of generative pre-trained models. This could be something like I put here, customer engagement or content creation. Then you map the actual abilities of the model you plan to use, whether it's public ChatGPT or Google Gemini or your own private Llama model. You map the abilities to your business needs. For example, what you'll be doing, automating tasks, extracting the insights from the data you have, or write some compelling narratives. Then you integrate them into your existing workflows to maximize the impact. So the key here is try to mix the technology, literally like, adding it in small quantities and see how it changes your existing workflows before you start any form of transformational and disruptive change in your business process. Step number two, again, align GPT with your goals and think business, not tech. Focus on return on investment and understanding how specifically, particular business goals will be delivered using the new technology. Whether your investment in the technology isn't some of the question how expensive it is to integrate. That's exactly the question is. Ask yourself how much it would cost you to integrate that and how much you will get as the result of this change. And if the numbers don't play around, if they don't fit your business strategy, then you should be doing something differently. But if you're doing it right, if you see the clear return on investment on putting the GPT into your business process, then keeping this continuous alignment with core business objectives, you start to add artificial intelligence tools into your business strategy. And as I mentioned earlier, there are many potential real or perceived issues with GPT and artificial intelligence as a whole. That's why it's important that you embrace transparency in your communications. So be very open that you're bringing new tools which could change the way the company, the business, or specific part of the business will work. Educate your employees, make them your allies in using the technology, educate them on the potential productivity gains, but as well on the limitations of the technology. So they won't be afraid that they would lose their jobs just because you're bringing new cool tech into your workplace. It's important to try to facilitate, to foster this true collaboration between humans and AI. In the same natural way as we learned to use smartphones just perhaps a decade ago or 2 decades ago, or how we learned how to use automobiles, the cars, and also of automotive technology just about 100 years ago, it's as essential to make this true collaboration between humans and the technology. Provide support for upskilling or reskilling for your employees so they don't feel that they're threatened by the technology, but rather empowered with that. And smooth change management is always key for a successful AI journey. And it's interesting that AI can help you with your change management, but the change management comes first. You must embed it into the strategic adoption of the technology. As a bonus point, I would add here that do not forget about ethics. We're still humans, and we only remain humans as long as we think of ourselves as such. So the technology is not about to replace us as long as we work together with technology, as long as we collaborate with technology, but we don't put technology ahead of humans. So think of that. Think of how your technology might change people's lives, both your employees and your customers and the rest of the world, and tread carefully but boldly. As we move on, some of the best practices for leveraging GPT in decision making. I mentioned that integrate with existing systems. Try diverse applications, maybe something which you haven't thought about, but you know, be quite bold there and think broadly, and invest and maintain continuous monitoring and feedback collection and analysis. Uh, Again, this is not a magic wand. This is not some kind of magic trick. It's just technology. And the same way as as you would introduce the new model of a forklift to your warehouse, you would expect people to get trained on using this technology to get full advantage of that, and you would monitor the performance of the new forklifts in your warehouse environment. The same applies to GPT. Understand limitations and ethical considerations. I mentioned it already. It is not all-powerful tool by any means. Uh, Acknowledge that there will be inherent bias in the GPT model because it's only as smart as the data used to train it. Ensure data privacy compliance, and your IP compliance, intellectual property compliance. Some companies prohibit employees from using publicly available ChatGPT or Google Gemini tools for their day-to-day work tasks simply because the employees could put something which is business critical, confidential, secret into the system, and the model continues to learn on the user input. So this information, which might be the crown jewel of the company, might leak that way to the broader public. And again, cultivating the culture of continuous learning and innovation. And just like the model itself, it keeps learning as you use it. That's how we should deal with the model and how we should approach dealing with the model. We should encourage our employees and counterparts upstream and downstream, both our suppliers, contractors, and customers, to be more literate around artificial intelligence. We should experiment, but do it safely. Any risk taking should be informed and controlled. That's why it's important to manage risks and take this collaborative approach. As I said, just like in the past with the steam engine, with electricity, with computers, we're only as powerful as we're able to use the technology at its best and stay smarter than the technology. Now I'll show you three real brief case studies, and I'll take the questions after that. The first study is from JP Morgan Chase, one of the largest US banks. They deployed their GPT models in the backend to analyze very complex financial documents and generate reports. They used this approach over several years, and they used a combination of their own in-house model and the publicly available models through API. The business value in this approach was quite obvious. The model streamlined the process of extracting the insights from the data and generating the inference or analyzing and spotting correlation between different parts of financial data and reports. So the forecasting became way more reliable, and that improved their decision making. It made their decision making and forecasting way more accurate. It led to more efficient analysis process. It reduced the time required for data processing and interpretation. To the best of my knowledge, the report quoted close to a quarter, 25% improvement on the time needed to generate an average report compared to already pretty much advanced JP Morgan Chase use of all sorts of business intelligence data tools. and obviously provided them with a competitive edge in financial forecasting, as I said, because the model helped them to see, the elements and correlation and causation links between the data, which otherwise would remain unchecked. Another interesting case study is the company called Zendesk, which put its GPT use in the front end. Actually, Zendesk, I bet you've heard of this company, and if you haven't heard of this company, I'm 100% sure that you used it, because the moment you reach out to the customer support for your broadband company, energy company, any other software tool or anything computer related, chances are you're dealing with a product from Zendesk. They're a service first CRM company, and they integrated GPT models into the customer service platform, which they offered for their customers, which enhanced the automated responses and ticket handling. So what they actually did, they used this capability of a GPT model to generate very reliably human responses to all sort of different queries. So instead of relying on a very simple script-based analysis every time, or script-based chatbots or ticket analysis software, they used advanced GPT models to analyze it, and it created contextually more relevant responses, automated responses to the queries. So sometimes the end users didn't realize that they were talking through email, most likely, with a machine, not with an actual human being. It reduced the workload on human agents. In some sense, if you think of the three level 1, level 2, level 3 support, technical support organization, not only the level 1, but also to an extent level 2 support could be fully automated with GPT models. So the humans could focus on more complex tasks. And as a result, not only they improved the efficiency of their customer service operations, but because they offered it as a product, it improved their customers, their own customer service operations. It improved the customer satisfaction ratings, because nobody loves chatting with a dumb chatbot, but people appreciate when they communicate with a smart technology. And obviously, it again reduced their operational cost. And the third case study, I wanted to share my first-hand personal experience. I don't know how well it is coming through on the screen for you right now, but it's a real screenshot from my smartphone just a week ago. I was chatting with Thames Water. It's the UK largest water and wastewater company, and I noticed that I was building credit for my household, for my home account, on my water use. So the company suggested that I use the chatbot in WhatsApp, and I tried interacting with them over WhatsApp. Clearly, they didn't use GPT model, or so it looks like a script-based chatbot. But if they claim that they use GPT model, I hope that they're still planning to do that, and it's not it, because if it is a GPT-based chatbot, then it's a total disaster. But it shows you how they could improve the situation, actually, because the chatbot was really dumb. It first threw at me some variable which it obviously couldn't initialize. It pretended to be human-like with now where were we, and obviously it didn't go well, because to my pretty much ChatGPT style of communication with see above, it didn't catch it, and obviously I had to ask for the agent to step up. And just to continue this case study, I ended up chatting with a real person on this chat, and they told me that in order to reduce the amount of my monthly direct debit, I had to call the company anyways. So they could not do this by chat. But if they used GPT model and they used a smart chatbot to operate in this chat, that would be a totally different story. That all could have been resolved in my interaction with the machine only. And the machine would analyzing my inputs. I asked the company, providing a bit of my personal data like my account number and my address. I suggested that they reduce my monthly payment from £21 to £18 because I built £116 of credit. But a smart GPT model would suggest something like, you know what, we have two options. I can refund you £100 straight away and keep your monthly bill at £21, or we can reduce it to £17 based on your history. That's what we think you should be paying, not 18 but 17, something like that. And it all could have been automated, and the human would not be needed in this interaction. And guess what? With this type of technology implementation, I had to interact with two humans, one on the chat and another one on the phone. With that, I'm done with my slides, and I have two questions in the chat, and by all means, please feel free to add questions there. I'll take them in the order they appear.
Thank you so
So,
much for. Mhm.
sorry, and go on, please.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for this, Martin, for the insightful presentation that you provided to us. It's now time to delve into your questions. Please continue to type in them into the Q&A tab or on the chat box. I'll be selecting a few for Martin to answer live. And let's make this interactive and insightful for everyone. Actually, I have a question here from Edmond Melina. So let me show this one on the stage. So, what about using GPT or behind firewall equivalent to develop a new product service based on our company IP? Example, instead of reaching out to one of our consultants or coaches, clients could use the AI-based product for a fee.
Oh, brilliant question, and spot on, Edmund, on this consideration of using proprietary on-prem GPT model versus a public one, because as I pointed previously during the presentation, is one of the key concerns that using a public GPT model could lead to leaking your intellectual property into the public domain, which is obviously highly undesirable and could actually risk your business survival at some point of time. So that would lead to huge competitive disadvantage. So, on the specific of your question, how I would approach that, uh, you know, GPT model is only as smart as the amount of data you fed into the model. And this is a catch here. The public model is super powerful and it's so human-like simply because it used, you remember, like over 100 trillion of data sets for its training. You won't be able by any chance, unless you're willing to spend billions for training your own on-prem llama model. uh, Llama stands for large language analyzer model. They sometimes are called foundational models as well. So if you want to use your own on-prem foundational model, you will either have to invest very heavily in making it smart by feeding it tons of training materials. And by the way, you might encounter some issues like the GPT um, uh, creators, open AI are facing right now, like copyright claims of using certain text for training the model without the permission of the author. So that means that you will need access to tons of background data on how you could, how you could coach or how you could consult your clients on, specific topics, and then this model would be competitive to, human interacting with the client. Yes, it will cut your costs, no question about that. It will be super cheap, and in longer shot, it could be a potential win. But my recommendation would be actually to combine it to an extent, just like Zendesk did. You still need humans. You cannot navigate it entirely autonomously, at least not at the moment. You'll still need humans, but if you embed GPT to make the initial engagement with the customer, and if you use GPT model, again, your own proprietary one or the public one, to analyze the insights you gather from the customer to make your human consultants or coaches more efficient, that could be the sweet spot here. So from my point of view, what you're talking about is possible, but it is for now probably prohibitively expensive. You need to invest, like Microsoft, billions, to build your own model, or you'll have to rely on a public model, which could lead to your to leaking of your data. Hope it helps.
Thank you so much. So I saw a question from Mr. Jason Boxum. So how expensive is it to add AI to a business ecosystem?
Thank you for the question. Yes, Jason, and I assume by AI you mean GPT models, because AI is a broader term. But it's not really expensive. ChatGPT would cost you, I think it costs like $20 a month for the very simple license, and the API licenses cost about the same. Obviously, it's a transactional model. It's transactional cost model for OpenAI, and the same is going to be implemented by Meta and Google. Uh, so you need to, in order to answer your question, basically the answer, it depends how much of the transactions you expect there to be, how many of those transactions, how much of the data set you need to access, what kind of sophistication you expect from the model, because it could be from not expensive at all or for free at all. Because if you take your own, if you take an on-prem llama model and you feed it with reasonable amount of training data and you implement it all internally on-prem, it will be quote unquote free, because you'll still have to invest into the computational resources to run the model, or into the cloud resources to run it on the public cloud. But it could cost you, an order of magnitude. Probably, if you start, and if you track carefully, you'll probably start spending several hundred dollars a month on reasonable amount of transactions, reasonable amount of interaction with the model, and you can grow from there. But back to my point, you should monitor the metrics of your use of the technology. So if you're spending, let's say, $250 on the API fees for OpenAI, how much are you getting back in returns for this? If you're getting thousands, then obviously it's not expensive at all, and you should encourage your team to explore more and use more transactions. If you're spending, I don't know, 500 on the licenses, on the API fees, and you're only getting, the same amount of return, and big question is whether it's worth it.
Thank you so much. So I have last question for Nihar and John Patra. So you mentioned that we can streamline operations and automation. How to achieve this?
Oh, that's a brilliant question, and thank you, Miha, for that. Uh, in order to streamline operations and use automation for that, use GPT models for that, you need to think, you need to focus, shift your focus from this customer interaction, we got used to think of GPT as a chatbot, but it is a very powerful tool which predicts, what comes next in a sequence of words, characters, pixels, or numbers. So you use GPT model to analyze your operations data or your manufacturing data. So you link it to your MES system, manufacturing execution system, if you're in manufacturing. If you're doing, I don't know, supply chain management, then you link it to to the key, you feed the key parameters, the key outputs of your supply chain management system into the GPT model, and you prompt it, you ask it, proper questions on how you could improve, and you focus on specific indicators which you want to improve. The model is very good in answering that type of question, and I mentioned this prompt engineering. That's the programming skill of the 21st century. It's like driving skill in the middle of the 20th century. It should be very pervasive. Everybody should master that, at least at the basic level. So you would use this prompt engineering to generate insights on how you could improve your operations, and even use the model to give you ideas, like participate in your brainstorming sessions on what aspects of what elements of automation it could generate for you. I could give you one example which we used a couple of years ago using the GPT model with one of our customers, where they wanted to think of potential technology disruptive, disruptive technology for warehouse monitoring in a very dusty environment, where in the past humans had to walk on like 6 meter high special walks and pavements, and to monitor what's going on in the warehouse. And the model, we used ChatGPT for this, and the model suggested that we use the cameras. The cameras would have some form of screen, in front of the lens, which would enable either electrostatically or by shaking, like the piezo cleaners for the dust cleaners for the image sensors in the cameras, is something like that in front of the camera, so we were protected from the dust. We didn't think about that, but the model invented this technology for us. It just suggested that we combine two elements of the technology, regular CCTV cameras and these filters, these screens in front of the cameras, which would help the cameras to remain clean in this very dusty technology, in this very dusty environment. So then, obviously, we reached out for the prototype, and took it forward further. And it was a couple of years ago. So right now, if we use that, I would expect that the GPT model would also bring us, a few manufacturers which could manufacture the specific components of this technology. So again, answering your question, it's quite a generic question, I must admit, but I hope I gave you some ideas how you could approach it in the most efficient way.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Martin. So, okay, I really appreciate you answering all of the question of our attendees. So before we wrap up for today's session, I would like to remind you guys that this today's session has been recorded and will be accessible to on the ITC YouTube channel. It's a great resource to revisit or share within your network. And for those not yet a member of the ITC, today's webinar attendance qualifies you for a free membership. Don't miss out on this opportunity to join our community. And lastly, participants will receive a certificate of participation. Please watch your email over to the next few days for more information. And please, can you please type in also your email address, Mr. Martin, for those anyone who wanted to contact you regarding this presentation? Can you please leave your email to our chat box or here?
Uh, Yeah, certainly. So you will see my email in the chat. It's marty@six.com. So feel free
Okay.
to reach out for any follow-up questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I will show also the email of Mr. Martin here on the screen for those who are really interested to check or wanted to watch this presentation on the ITC YouTube channel. I will display the email address as well here on the screen. So here. This is pps.diala@hotmail.com. I will also leave my email address here for those who not yet a member of the ITC. You can contact me anytime here. So, do you have any final thoughts about your presentation, Mr. Martin?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I hope that the audience enjoyed that, and I encourage the participants to experiment in a responsible way with artificial intelligence and the GPT models. So thank you very much for that, and tread carefully, but move ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin. So, okay, a massive thank you goes to out to Martin Dens for sharing our or his expertise with us today, and to all of our participants. Thank you for your active involvement and thoughtful questions. Your engagement truly enriches our webinars. Remember, implementing GPT models for your business or for our business excellence is a journey of continuous improvement. So let's apply the insight gained today to drive success in our respective endeavors. Don't forget also to check your email for follow up information, including how to claim the certificate. And we wish a wonderful day and look forward to welcome you all to future webinars. Goodbye for now. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, and
Bye bye.
bye now.